Hey you! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Brandon, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my top 10 books of 2021. Now, this isn't the top 10 books that were released in 2021 because a lot of these weren't released in 2021. However, they are the books that I read in 2021. In total, I read 60 books, which is great. 7 fewer than the year before, but I understand why. The beginning of 2021 was very rocky for me as far as reading goes. And so I knew it was going to be fewer than it was in the past. However, in 2022, already I've read 5 books. No. Hang on. Yes, I've read 5 books, wow. And I'm making my way through 3 more, hopefully. It's currently mid-January, so I am hoping I'll be done with 8 books in month 1, which is phenomenal. Definitely better than last year where I only read 1 book. But enough about 2022 because this video is all about the top 10 books that I read in 2021. So without further ado, let's hop on into the books. All right, so at my number 10 spot, we have Last Call by Elon Green. This is a true crime book about the last call killer in the, I believe, late 80s, early 90s. Yes. In New York City. So this book follows mainly the lives of the men who were victims to the last call killer. It's not until the very end that we are let in on who the last call killer is and his story. But even then, it is a book that is very focused on the victims, which I thought was a breath of fresh air because it's something I don't find a lot in true crime that I watch. This is the first true crime book that I've read ever, but based on movies and TV shows that I've seen about true crime, it's always very focused on the suspect, the accused, and the perpetrators. So it was very nice to focus on the lives that these victims lived, and it did a great job at covering that and covering the complexities of being queer men back in the 80s and 90s, especially during the AIDS epidemic. It was just very, very insightful and beautiful, and it covers those nuances very well. I cannot wait to read more from Elon Green, hopefully more true crime, but even if it's not true crime, I will definitely be interested in picking up more books from him in the future because I really enjoyed this. I literally read it in 1 day, so if that doesn't tell you anything, I don't know what does. But this is Elon Green's debut. It did come out in 2021, so a very new release made it to the top 10 of my 2021 reading year. So if you haven't checked this out, I definitely recommend it, especially if you love true crime and queer history. All right, so at number 9, we have a book that I don't have here physically, and that is because I listened to the audiobook from Libro FM. My affiliation link is down below. But that is Cultish. So this book was so well done. I went into it thinking it was going to be a lot on cults in general and famous cults and things like that, but it actually is more about the language used in a lot of these cultish groups. So it not only talks about specific, actual cults like Jonestown and Heaven's Gate and things like that, but it also talks about other forms of cult-ish groups. It talks about Peloton, it talks about MLMs, it talks about stan culture. There are just so many incredible discussions going on in this book that I am so glad that I was privy to read, and I thought it was so fascinating. Like I said, I went into it expecting one thing and was pleasantly surprised that it was something else, especially as someone who is an English teacher, a lover of the English language. I really, really enjoyed the parts where our author breaks down the complexities of speech and the power of words and how all of these cultish groups have their own form of communication that works to manipulate and to maintain their core group of followers. And it just is such a well done book. I highly recommend it. This is one that when I read it, I didn't think it was going to be in my top 10. However, over the past few months since I've read it, I have thought about it at least once a week since initially reading it. So to me, to have that kind of staying power in my mind, the book deserved to be in my top 10, and here it is at my number 9 spot. At number 8, we have For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. So last year I read My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing and loved it. I just love the campiness, the uncanny ability that Samantha Downing has to just create this horrific thriller while also adding these elements of comedy and camp. And it just reminds me so much of what I love about horror and how it just elevates everything from emotions to actions to characters in general. It's such a fun ride. Is it the most believable at times? Absolutely not. But you go into it knowing that with the Samantha Downing, right? These are like maniacal villains that you would have in like a Disney movie almost, with just how over the top they are, but it just makes for such an enjoyable read. I don't want to give too much away about For Your Own Good, so I'm just going to read the synopsis that's on the front flap because I think it does a good job of giving you just enough information without spoiling things. So it says, Teddy Crutcher has won Teacher of the Year at the prestigious Belmont Academy, home to the best and brightest. He says his wife couldn't be more proud, though no one has seen her in a while. Teddy really can't be bothered with a few mysterious deaths on campus that are looking more and more like murder, or the students digging a little too deep into Teddy's personal life. His main focus is pushing these kids to their full academic potential. All he wants is for his colleagues and the endlessly meddlesome parents to stay out of his way. If not, well, they'll get what they deserve. It's really too bad that sometimes excellence can come at such a high cost. Makes me want to read it again. I've already read it and I want to read it again. It's just such a great novel. I loved this one for many reasons. I also read He Started It this year, which is the second novel of Samantha Downing. I enjoyed that one as well, but the reason this one beat out He Started It is just because it's about a high school English teacher, and at the beginning I found myself relating to our main character here, which, if you've read the book, you know is not the best thing. However, as the book went on, I was able to see like what was really going on. I was like, whoa, I related to this guy earlier, and now I hate the fact that I did. It created such a fun reading experience for me, and the fact that we were dealing with students and their parents and college applications and recommendations and things like that. It was just a world that I'm very well versed in, and so it made it even more enjoyable to read this book. So if you haven't read this one, in general, read Samantha Downing if you haven't read her. But if you've read other Samantha Downings, then you know just how amazing she is, and obviously you should pick up this book because it's no different. At number 7, we have another book that I don't have the physical copy of, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I listened to this on audiobook as well. I am definitely going to buy my own physical edition of this book because it's just so incredible. It is so heartwarming and enjoyable and fun and sweet and everything that I could have wanted at that moment. So for those of you who don't know what House on the Cerulean Sea is, it is basically about a man who is tasked to check the well-being of a fantastical house of foster children. And so the children in this facility are endowed with specific supernatural abilities. And so they are known as like the toughest group, right? This home was like the last resort. They were sent here because they couldn't last anywhere else. And so the company for which our main character works is trying to almost like condemn this foster home. It's trying to bring it down. It's trying to say like this isn't good for the kids. And so our main character is tasked with finding the flaws. And he does, but in finding those flaws, he finds the beauty in them and in himself. And I'm not going to spoil the book, but it's so lovely, heartwarming, sweet. It reminded me a lot of how as a child I felt reading the Harry Potter books and watching the Harry Potter films. And my mom and I recently had a conversation around Christmas time with, they just don't make movies like they used to, which is true. There are some great movies every now and again, but overall, like, there's not that excitement that I have to go to the theater to see a movie that much anymore. Like, I think back in the heyday where it was Harry Potter once a year almost, Twilight, Hunger Games, Divergent, things like that, where, again, some of these movies weren't incredible. They weren't like masterpieces of cinema, but they were just fun and exciting and heartwarming, and it just made for a an amazing viewing experience with your family, and they don't make them like that anymore. So I told her, I was like, you have to read The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, because it's just such a fun, heartwarming, family-friendly kind of story. There are those jokes, obviously, like any Pixar movie or Disney movie where it's meant for the adults, but overall, it's still just at its core a found family story that is just rooted in sweetness and, genuine care. And I just want to live in this world. It's phenomenal. I have to reread it soon. That's why I need my physical copy. But again, that was The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. If you haven't read it, what are you waiting for? It's definitely worth the read. Maybe they'll make an adaptation, and that's something I could be excited about going to see in the movie theater with my family, just like I was with Harry Potter and all those movies I mentioned before. At number 6, we have Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. This novella requires no introduction. It requires no explanation on my part as to why it's here. It is just an incredibly creepy, haunting story. I love that it's written as if it's in a chat room format. It's just, I read it in less than a day, obviously, but it has stayed with me still. And when anyone talks about like the creepiest book I've read, again, I've not read mini horror. I'm kind of like branching out. Like last year was my first encounter, I would say, with like actual horror that's not, just Stephen King. Well, I guess the year before that I read the Amityville Horror. So I would say that was kind of my start into the horror genre, and I love that, and that creeped me out a lot. But most recently, it's been Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. I made my friend read it, and when she did, she texted me immediately and was like, what the fuck did you just make me read? And that's honestly what my reaction was. I was like, what the fuck did I just read? So for those of you who don't know what Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke is about, it is about a woman who is trying to sell an apple peeler online, and she gets in contact with another woman who is open to buying it, and they strike up a friendship which turns romantic quite quickly, and then turns sinister almost as quickly as it turned romantic. And again, I don't want to get into specifics because it is such a short novella, but it's just, like I said, really dark, really disgusting, a lot of body horror in this. So if you're opposed to that, maybe avoid this one, but definitely worth the read in my opinion. It's phenomenal. It's scary, not like overtly scary like a horror movie, but it's unsettling and creepy, and you leave it being like, what the fuck? How did we get here? From the start, how did we get from an apple peeler to where we are now? Again, still not 100% sure, but I am very much looking forward to Eric LaRocca's future works. I was able to get my hands on his most recent short story collection before it sold out, and he's not going to be selling it for a few years, which I'm so glad I was able to get it when I did. Thank you, Steph, my stepmom, for doing that, because Lord, I was scared that I would never get to read that book. So I'm excited to get to that this year, as well as any future Eric LaRocca books that he plans to put out, because I need more. It was great. It's queer, it's horror, it's unsettling, it's fun. I would say fun, because I was able to read it so quickly, like I was engaged. But overall, creepy and unsettling are the first words that come to mind with this novella. So definitely check it out. All right, so in my number 5 position, we have Salems Lot by Stephen King. Now this edition has Carrie, Salem's Lot, and The Shining. I'm specifically here talking about Salem's Lot. So for those of you who don't know what Salem's Lot is about, it is about a man who is coming back to his hometown to write a novel, coming back to Jerusalem's Lot, aka Salem's Lot, when he starts to experience, and the town itself starts to experience, some really strange disappearances and behavior on the part of some of the townspeople, and all of that hits a peak once our main character finds out that vampires are involved. This is Stephen King's take on the vampire novel. Again, not much to really be said here. A lot of people have read this. You at least know about it. But it is definitely way better than I thought. I went into it excited to read it for sure, but still hesitant on, is it really going to be one of my favorite King books? Like, people say that this is one of his best, but is it really? Like, it's kind of long. Is it going to be a little boring in places? Like, what's going on? I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. I loved the characters. I loved the town, the atmosphere, the thrills, the scares. More specifically, like, there was this one scene with someone outside of a window that creeped the fuck out of me. I live on the second story of my apartment complex and was like, I need to close my blinds. I'm a little nervous. So it was just phenomenal. It was horrifying, but so nostalgic as well, and beautifully written. Again, like, no incredibly beautiful prose or anything like that from King, but still just, it's King. It's King at one of his best that I've read, and I would highly recommend it. If you enjoy Stephen King and haven't read Salem's Lot yet, then definitely do so. I wouldn't say that this is one you should start out with, just because it is a little on the longer side. However, it is one of the first that I feel like you should read, because it's one of my first. I've read, I think this is like the 5th or 6th that I've read, maybe 7th. So again, take that with a grain of salt. That's just my opinion, but I thoroughly enjoyed Salem's Lot by Stephen King. All right, in my number 4 spot, we have The One by John Marrs. So ever since I bought this book, I was excited to read it. Ever since I heard that it was like Black Mirror-esque, I was like, I need to get my hands on it. And it didn't disappoint. It was very much like Black Mirror. So for those of you who don't know, The One is about a company that found a way to link DNA with soulmates. Therefore, they use this technology to help people find their soulmates in some kind of matchmaking service. And we have a huge cast of characters with a variety of issues and identities and nuances to their situations. We have someone who is a serial killer, and he is seeking out his soulmate to murder her. We have a woman whose soulmate just recently passed away. We have a woman whose soulmate is like on the verge of passing away. He's like terminally ill, if I'm not mistaken. We have a person whose soulmate is of the same sex, and both of these people have always defined themselves as straight. So it's just an interesting book, and I'm glad that John Marrs took the time to explore the different situations that could have happened with this. And it was just a 5 out of 5. As soon as I finished it, I just wanted to pick it up and start reading it again. I didn't, but I need to soon. It's just an incredible book. I still haven't seen the show. I've not really heard the best things, so I'm a little nervous to do so. But if you watched it and enjoyed it, please let me know down below. But other than that, if you haven't read The One by John Marrs, definitely do so. I know it's a bit thicker. I think it's like 400, almost 450 pages. But it's well worth the read. It is so fun. So fast paced. Like, each chapter leaves off on a cliffhanger with a specific character, and so you're just like wanting to get back to them, but also wanting to read all the other characters and get back to them. And it was like, I would be disappointed when a character story would end in a chapter and then be automatically excited about continuing the story of another character that left on a cliffhanger chapters before. So it's phenomenal. I highly recommend it, and that's why it's in my top 10, top 5 to be quite frank. It's in the number 4 spot, so highly deserves that title. All right, so in my number 3 spot, we have Meet Cute Club by Jack Harvin. I so enjoyed this book. It was so beautiful and so fun and so lighthearted and so steamy. Not quite as steamy as I would have hoped, but still just enough to make it to my number 3 spot. I need more. I need more of this story. So Jack Harvin, if you're watching, probably not, but if you are, please at least send it to me if you're not going to send it to anyone else, or publish it, because I need more from these characters. They are so phenomenal. Even if we don't get these characters, like being in the same town where we can like kind of, it's a companion novel to this, that would work for me too. Just so I know how they're doing, because this is phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There's not much else to say. It's about our main character, Jordan, who is a lover of romance novels, and he hosts his own romance novel book club. And the worker at the bookstore, Rex, who is a little more dark, drives a motorcycle, is like your typical like masked dude, who, you know, has an interest in Jordan, and they kind of start this friendship. It's like almost enemies to lovers at first. There's like this slight like annoyance with one another, and then it goes into like some friendship vibes, and then potentially more. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's phenomenal. I just loved it so much. This is what I've been looking for, and I have not found a duplicate. Not a duplicate, but I have not found something that makes me feel like this. A male rom-com that is fun and steamy and gives me everything that I want. So if you have any recommendations for that, I have been looking. I promise I have. But if you have any recommendations, please let me know down below because I need them ASAP. But this, again, maybe I just need to reread this. Maybe I just need to get my fill that way. But honestly, like I said, I want some more steam. I want some more heat going on between these characters because what I read was great, but just wasn't enough. I needed more. So yes, this comes in at number 3. It's so fun, and is it the perfect book? No. But it's fun, and I enjoyed it, and it's one that I find myself thinking about all of the time. So if you are into this sort of thing, check it out. All right, so at number 2, we have a repeat author, and that is The Shining by Stephen King. So again, ignoring Carrie and Salem's Lot for the moment, The Shining was phenomenal. It's one of the first books that I read last year, and it's just stayed with me. When I first watched the movie when I was in college, hated it. Watched it a second time, really enjoyed it. Watched it a third time, loved it. So finally I was like, okay, I need to read the book. The book was even better than the movie. It was just everything that I wanted, right? I knew that Stephen King didn't like the movie. I knew that. Does part of me, want to side with Stephen King? Absolutely. However, the movie is still a cinematic masterpiece, so we can't ignore that. However, it didn't really stay true to the heart of The Shining, and there's so many elements that were changed and, removed completely, and I think that in order for the film to be what it is, those things needed to happen. However, the book just is so much better. It's so much richer. We get more from Danny. We get heart from Jack. We get a lot more about Wendy. There's just like, honestly, even more horrific aspects of the Overlook Hotel. But overall, this was just a haunting story that I thoroughly enjoyed. So if you have seen the movie or not seen the movie and you are interested in reading The Shining, I definitely recommend that you do so because it's worth the read. 100%. There's a reason why this book is one of the Stephen King fan favorites. So for those of you who don't know, The Shining is about Jack Torrance, his wife Wendy, and his son Danny, and they are a family who is struggling a bit financially. Jack is an author and former English teacher, and so he's trying to get some more money. Danny is getting a bit older, but he's struggling with some things on his own. And they decide that the best option for them would be to kind of be the keepers of the Overlook Hotel during its off season. So when everything is snowed in, people can't get up to the mountain to, visit this hotel. They are kind of tasked with running the hotel while the staff is gone. So basically they're just making sure the generators are working. They're making sure that the gas is basically just, again, running this hotel. However, creepy shit starts to happen, and not just with the Overlook Hotel itself, but with our main cast of characters as well. And there is just so much going on in this that you can't accurately gather that information in the synopsis, so you'll just have to take my word for it. It's worth the read. All right, and at my number 1 spot is actually the first book that I read last year, and that is I Want to Be Where the Normal People Are by Rachel Bloom. This author is also the creator and star of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which was a CW show airing for, I think, 4 seasons. Phenomenal show if you haven't seen it. I adore it. I watched it multiple times, and it's helped me through so many dark moments in my life, and it's just been there, and I love it, and so I wanted to read Rachel Bloom's memoir, and it did not disappoint. There are so many things going for this book. We have some chapters written in script. We have some images included, some illustrations as well as photographs. We have funny experiences. We have some light behind the scenes Crazy Ex-Girlfriend stuff. I hope that we get to, know more in a future book by Rachel Bloom, which I think she kind of teases a bit. But it also talks about motherhood and the pandemic lightly at the end. But overall, it's just about a creative's experience in life with being misunderstood and kind of going above and beyond to their own detriment in certain cases. So it was just fun and funny, and it's exactly what I needed. Like I said, January and February were quite rough for me in 2021, as well as November and December, but of not 2021, but of 2020. So November, December 2020, and then January and February of 2021 were rough. This is the only book that I read in January of 2021, and it really just helped me feel better, just like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend did. I owe so much to Rachel Bloom for my own health and well-being. It's just she just touches my heart so much, and she knows exactly what I'm going through and knows exactly how to discuss it and write about it. That makes me hopeful and inspired about the future. So again, phenomenal. I love it so much. If you haven't read it, you definitely need to. Also, I think I've said this before in a video, but I can't not say it again. This edition is signed by Rachel Bloom. Not that I went to a signing or anything. Like, it was just at Barnes & Noble. It's still fun, exciting. She touched that sheet of paper. No, but this is my number one. It's phenomenal. Definitely check it out, especially if you love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. All right, so again, these, as well as the 2 audiobooks, are my top 10 of 2021. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And also, hit that post notification bell so you are notified every time that I post a new video. Until next time, bye.